Is it on? Is the light on?
Now
Oh, now it's definitely red now.
Welcome, everybody. I am going to call to order today's regular meeting of the Yountville Town Council, Tuesday, November the 21st, and it is 3:02 p.m. So with that, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Reeves. Here. Councilmember McKee Cant.
Here.
Councilmember Tripp.
Here?
Vice Mayor Knight.
Here.
Mayor Moeller.
Here. And can we all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And could I get a time to adopt this afternoon's agenda? Can I get a motion and a second to adopt today's agenda?
Move to adopt?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Council member announcements. So, watching my red lights go on.
Oh, yeah, it's behind my thingamabobber.
Remind everybody, there we go. Councilmember McKee Cant.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Whitney and Letitia of our chamber for organizing, and of course Bob Hurley for organizing the much appreciated Celebrity Chefs Luncheon in honor of Veterans Day. And also that team, along with our chamber, along with our Parks and Recs, for the fabulous tree lighting. Welcome for Whitney, to her long-awaited team member that's joining next week. I also want to point out that Jeff Durham reported that the Town of Yountville Community Foundation Thanksgiving is preparing 137 meals, 80 for sit-down on Thanksgiving and 57 to be delivered. He's got a lot of volunteers, and the dinner is being prepared by 100% volunteer efforts. Donations, financial donations that is, are still needed and appreciated, and those cover the cost of the food and the rentals, and those can be made through the Community Foundation of Town of Yountville.
Thank you. Any other council members? No? Excuse me. I would also like to mention that we will be holding our Wreaths Across America ceremony. We have 2 cemeteries within the town of Yountville. We have the George Yount Pioneer Cemetery, and we have a very, very large veteran cemetery up at the Veterans Home. That will be, both ceremonies will be on December the 16th. The one at the Yountville Pioneer Cemetery will be at 9 a.m., and the one at the Veterans Home will be at 11 a.m. And the public can participate by coming to both ceremonies. And I know at the George Yount Cemetery, anybody who would like to volunteer can lay wreaths. We have 125 wreaths available for our 125 veterans there. And I think the chamber is organizing volunteers, I believe, for the laying the wreaths at the Yountville Veterans Home Cemetery. So, and I'll remind everybody again at our next council meeting on December the 5th, but mark your calendars. And also the Sunday night, again, thank you to the town, especially Samantha, as well as the chamber for putting together I just thought it was really fun. Sunday night tree lighting, having Santa, and we always, and Bill Dodd and Congressman Mike Thompson, they had a great time playing along with me, wondering, if why we had all the fire trucks there. And there was, people couldn't really tell, but there were these kids in the front row when we were all doing our little thing back and forth going, we know what's happening, we know what's happening. And so we asked them, what's happening? Oh, well, Santa's on the fire truck because it's a surprise. So those kids were pretty smart, but it was really fun. So everybody had a great time. So thanks for everybody for coming out, all the council and all the work behind the scenes, but it was really fabulous. So with that, no other council member announcements. We have no proclamations and recognitions this evening. Do we have any public comment on anything not on this afternoon's agenda? Seeing no public coming forward. Hillary, did we get any other comment?
No, Mayor, aside from the one forwarded to you earlier.
Okay, I think we all got that. It was a comment on a previous comment. Thank you very much for that. Let's move on to the consent calendar. We have 5 items. Does anybody want to discuss any of these, or can I get a motion and a second for approval?
Move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, with that, you want us to vote on this one? Yes, we can hit our buttons, and we'll all vote. And that's unanimously
And that has
approved.
passed unanimously.
Thank you
Mayor,
very
it's-
much. Yes.
Sorry, just quick comment. Comics, I saw Mr. Sout here today. Thank you to Robert and to the other candidate, Elaine, that was appointed to the Measure S committee. Thank you for stepping up, and we appreciate your volunteering to help in that committee. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And guest presentations, we have none this evening, and we have no public hearings this evening. So let's move on to, we have 4 administrative items. We'll take the first one. The first one is we're going to consider adoption of a resolution for reclassifying one of our employees. I'm going to ask town manager to lead us in that discussion, please.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we're recommending the reclassification of the finance director / treasurer into a administrative service director position. So the new job description and employment agreement are attached to the staff report. We all know Celia King, who's the current finance director that we're recommending this. And, you know, as your new town manager, I think 4 or 5 months in, you know, obviously continuing to assess and evaluate the current organizational structure and looking at staffing levels. But I think all of you know that my first day was the last day of the deputy director of HR and IT. So, so this is part of, you know, what I would say is an ongoing assessment, but clearly the first step is to fill that void that was left by that position, and I'll continue to come forward, you know, and through budgeting, we'll really sort of talk more holistically. But I want to thank Celia for filling that gap in the interim as we, you know, continue to make improvements to the organization and adapt to the changes. So with that, I do know that I think Mackenzie has something that has to be read into the record. But if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any, would you want to read something into the record now, or should I go with questions first?
I can just get it out of the way if that's fine with you,
Okay,
Mayor.
go right ahead.
All
Thanks.
right. So as Brad explained, this resolution ratifies the appointment of Celia King to the position of Administrative Services Director. It's reclassifying the existing position of Finance Director or Treasurer to Administrative Services Director. It approves a job description for that position, and it approves an employment agreement, which provides for a base salary of $14,045.68 per month, CalPERS retirement benefits in the same form provided to other employees, as well as health insurance, life insurance, vacation, administrative, and sick leave, with some additional floating holidays that are afforded to all managerial staff, an automobile allowance, a technology stipend, reimbursement for travel and reasonable expenses associated with professional meetings, conferences, or memberships, all on the same terms as provided to other managerial employees. So I'm happy to answer any questions about those benefits.
All right, thank you very much. So since we've got, there's 2 resolutions we'll need to approve later, so let's go through our normal format. So let's start asking questions, and you can use your lights so I can call on everybody. That would be great. And Councilmember Tripp.
Well, I'm totally supportive of this idea, and I was just wanted to ask Brad on what is the significance of the control point when you talk about salary? Sometimes people have a midpoint, or I just wasn't familiar with that. What
Yeah.
that meant.
Yeah, I think the control point is I'm trying to remember how that's defined up here. I hate to ask Celia a question about her own work, but she'd be better suited to answer that question.
Yeah, I think the control point is for the ranges. So there's a top, a middle, and a lower, and then a middle and a top range. And I think it's for recruitment, so that there's that range that you can bring in a new hire at a certain point within that range. If
So
that
maybe-
makes sense.
Yeah, based on, we do salary surveys. We have a group of what we call our benchmark cities. And then when you look at that again for a new hire, I think the control point tends to be kind of what they view to be the entry point. That makes
So
sense?
it's not really, okay, so it's a more realistic hiring than the entry point, which is lower than the
Yeah.
control point. Okay. And then I was just going to comment, I think it's really, I spent half my career as a business lawyer and then moved into the niche of risk management. And I worked for the CFO, and I worked for the chief medical officer, and I worked for the chief legal. But I think that risk management goes very well in finance. And so I really applaud that. And also HR, because so much of HR nowadays is figuring out benefit programs and actuarial and whatnot. So I think this is a large amount of new responsibility, and Celia is, in my view, the perfect person for it. So I really applaud this reorganizational step. But it really will, at least in my view, require a lot more work. And we have, as far as I can tell, a great risk management program, but it's a dynamic thing. So it'll be a really good thing to have Celia in charge of that.
Okay, seeing no more council questions, do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing nobody coming forward, let's bring it back. And so what we'll do, we have we have a resolution and an ordinance. We'll take them one at a time. So we'll ask the council member with their, use our lights, make a recommendation for the resolution, and we'll get a second, and then we'll debate that, and then we'll move on to the ordinance. Vice Mayor Knight.
Thank you. Second here, I had it set up and then moved away.
Just as a reminder, for motions, you don't have to use the lights. Remember, you can just verbalize the motion and the second. So
Right.
so that we can sequence that into the vote.
Just giving direction, support to the mayor, that I'm very happy to move approval of resolution number 23-4239, approving a reclassification of the finance director treasurer to administrative services director, and waive its reading.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's bring it back for debate. Celia, I'm so glad that you're here. We don't have to hire from the outside because you know the systems, and you are more than capable, I think, of stepping into these new shoes with the new responsibilities. So I really have no reservation at all on recommending the approval of this, and give my congratulations, assuming that we're going to get a very positive result up here. So those are my comments. Councilmember Reeves.
I just wanted to say that I feel the same, and I really appreciate the idea of hiring from within or promoting from within, so that we maintain that sort of institutional knowledge and memory. And I also agree that Celia is a really great candidate, and that I have every confidence.
Eric said it was on.
Councilmember McKee Can't.
I have nothing to add other than the fact that since you have been here so long, I understand that you have continued to take classes and grow your skill set. So this is not merit just rewarded on time served alone. It's on your ability to grow and grow in the future. And I think that sets an excellent example for all of the staff. So congratulations. A little premature, but thank you for your dedication.
Thank you. And so are we, any other comments? Vice Mayor Knight?
Thank you. Just briefly, I support the recommendation by the town manager for this job, in essence, change. But I think what's important for our community to know is that we're very, very fortunate to have Director King with this community working for us, and you've grown in this administrative work in your finance, and now I think I agree with the other council members. You're the perfect person to move into this new position. Thank you for staying with us and for being a great team leader for the town staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
So are we ready to vote? Okay.
The vote is now open.
Voting is now open. How come my light's not going on?
And that has passed unanimously.
Oh, guess it worked. Great. Congratulations. I'm very happy we now have a administrative service director, and Celia will be filling that position. So wonderful.
Thank you.
So we have one more item. We have an ordinance we need to pass to update our municipal code. So can I get a motion?
If I can
and a
interject, this is just to waive the first reading for considering this ordinance. It's not being adopted at this time.
Correct. So the resolution, we don't waive the reading of that one, but we waive the reading typically for an ordinance. So just,
Understand.
Okay.
But I didn't want to read all the whole ordinance, which I would have been happy
No,
to
the first
do to
one-
honor Director King.
the
but,
first one was a resolution. So all we did was pass the resolution.
Right. Okay.
But so now we're doing the ordinance, and this
Understand.
is the one we want to waive the reading on.
Thank you. I'm happy to make that motion. Thank you. I move approval of ordinance number 23-525, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Yountville reclassifying the Finance Director Treasurer position to Administrative Services Director and updating the town's municipal code to reflect the reclassification and waive the reading.
I
And
second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any debate? Seeing no lights, let's go ahead and vote. Is the voting open?
The vote is now open.
And that passes unanimously as well. So thank you, everybody. And again, congratulations. Administrative item B, we are going to consider and discuss a resolution adopting the Parks and Rec plan. And I see that Samantha has stealthily moved up to the seat. So,
Before she starts, excuse me, I'm sorry.
no, go right.
Okay, I just want to first of all congratulate Celia, well deserved, and introduce someone that everyone knows here in town, Samantha Holland, and just share from my perspective. Obviously, being here new, this started long before I got here. I think Sam's put so much effort into this, so I want to acknowledge you and thank you as well, because these things are not easy, and the more time they take, they tend to sort of grow a life of their own. But I just want to emphasize that, and I know Sam will do the same, that this is, a point in time. These documents are sort of living documents. I think as we transition into goal setting in December and January, this is a resource for all of you to use that you can point to as you establish goals for the staff, and then we come back hopefully with a budget that meets those goals. So this is a resource just like the study sessions have been, and and this will continue forward. So I don't want anyone to think this is like a point in time where something ends, but I do think that so much work has been put into it that it's a very valuable document for you as a resource to advise your decision-making, policy-making, budget decisions. So I just want to start out with that, and then I'll turn the floor over to Sam. Thank you.
All right, good evening or afternoon, everyone. Thank you. I'm Samantha Holland, for the record, your Parks and Recreation Director, and I have a PowerPoint to walk through and just lead us kind of through where we started with this, why we started with this process, and then give us a glimpse at what's in the plan and where we go from here. So we'll walk through that. And so, uh-oh. My clicker's not working. Next slide, please.
Is the power on the side?
Yeah,
Okay.
something's not working. You could click for me, that's fine. So the purpose of a Parks and Recreation master plan, or specifically here for Yountville, as some cities who maybe aren't built out as far as park space may look at specific plans for specific areas, we looked at it more broadly and really as a way of documenting what we currently have in our park system and our facilities and programs, and then planning for the future. It's a way to build credibility and support and consensus amongst our community members and stakeholders. It's a great way of informing citizens about our assets, what we have, what we do, and then the things that we're looking at for the future based on their input. It identifies potential future projects and goals. It can help us better position for grants that may come forward or other alternate funding methods. And it can help guide future decisions that the council might make. Next slide, please. So I wanted to, based on a couple conversations, what is a plan? What the plan, there's a typo there. What the plan is not. You know when you look at something 72 times and you just didn't see it. So what the plan is not is something that's set in stone. We always, I feel like, especially in Parks and Recreation, remain very adaptable to what's going on in the current needs of our community. It's not a guarantee that we'll complete all of these things in 5 years. And it's also really not limiting. So new ideas or initiatives that we would continue to evaluate even if it's not in the plan document. Things come up all of the time, whether it's an idea from someone that we can easily implement, or it could be a major change in our community. So obviously we would adapt to whatever those changes are. So I don't want you to see this document as limiting as far as what we can do in the next 5 years in the realm of Parks and Recreation. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to walk you through the process, which, yes, has been lengthy, but the reason behind that is the previous council and staff really recommended that it didn't really make sense to spend tens of thousands of dollars on external consultants to draft a Parks and Recreation master plan for Yountville. We were built out as far as park space at the current time, and for a lot of different reasons. And so we decided, and I proposed, which, wow, I don't know if I would do that again. It was to handle it internally for the most part, and then contract out for assistance with the public outreach portion. So in late 2021, we really began that internal research process. So we'll go into that a little bit later, but really looking at all of the historic documents around parks and recreation in Yountville. And then the consultants were brought on, and from May to August of 2022, we had a public survey out that was online as well as paper format. And then in September, I know prior to being on the council, some of you did attend a public meeting that we had that was facilitated by our consultants. And then in January was the first presentation to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission of the outcomes of the community input process. And then in May, a plan update was brought to the commission again. And then in July was the first time the commission saw the first draft of the plan. And they gave feedback, and then we brought it back in September. They only meet on the odd months. So we brought it back in September for their approval of the plan. And so there were 6 formal opportunities there for public input and participation. And we also had open-ended communication options with staff. So the plan was available for checkout from the community center as well as online with an email addressed directly to me for any public comment or questions. Next slide. So let's talk about what's in the 88 pages of the plan document, and then we'll dive a little deeper, but not too much, into each one of these things. And so we spent considerable time inventorying our parks, our facilities, our programs, and our services, all the way down to how many picnic tables and trash cans are in each park. So really kind of facilitated a deeper dive into what resources are where. Probably one of the most time-consuming things was the historical documentation piece. So staff spent, and I had some assistance finding documents through our document management system around anything we could find that had anything to do with our park sites, our trails, and programming, as well as the facilities. And so we ended up with over 125 documents that we now have inventoried and linked. As of today, Jason Bernard helped me update those links, because when we transferred to Laserfish Online, all of those links changed. But Jason very efficiently helped me update that. But that will live on our website. It's also in the document itself. But something I really wish 13 years ago, or that would have been here for me, was a way to really know the answers to the questions that come up around, why is there a bell at Yountville Community Park? And, when did we renovate this? And where did that sculpture come from? And so I think that having those assets easily available just helps us into the future as a whole. So that was fairly time consuming. But it's not something, obviously, that will be repeated every time. Maybe you do a new master plan or you update it, because it's been done. So that's pretty gratifying. And it'll just continue to build each year as we have new projects come online, or things that need to be linked to that have something to do with it. We also analyzed our general plan. Obviously, a lot of work went into the general plan in the past, was it 4 years? Oh man, time goes too fast. 5. And so there's obviously portions in the general plan that are specific to goals for Parks and Recreation. And so we wanted to make sure that those were included in the master plan. And then obviously the compilation and analysis of the public outreach process. A big part of this was taking the pulse of our community. We had, and we'll dive into a little bit of that. And then of course the recommendations that come out of that. When you call something a plan, you're obviously looking towards the future and what are the things that we're going to be looking at and focusing on. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a fun thing, and maybe we'll throw this out at a community event for trivia, but we have 15 acres of parks and open space here in Yountville, and 3 playgrounds, and yes, we know one of them's closed right now. for repairs, 3.6 miles of paths and trails. We have a 20,000 square foot community center and library facility, and our programming serves over 50,000 people annually. So that's youth, teens, adults, sports, our community events, our excursions, and our arts programs that all fall under the department. So let's dive just a little bit into each of those categories that I talked about earlier. So the historical documentation, so it's outlined for really each park. We tried to find all of the documents related to past council or ordinances or anything that really had anything to do with the parks. And so we outlined that as the documents as attachments, but then in the plan itself, each park has a little bit of a description of some of those interesting facts. Like I mentioned, 125 historical documents were inventoried and linked, and then, like I just said, historical narratives for our parks and facilities. And now we're going to dive into the community input piece. And so I talked earlier about the survey that went out and in person. It went out online, and then we had the paper version. So we had 186 respondents to the survey, and 78% of those were Yountville residents. Obviously, we have a high utilization, especially in programming and in our park visits from outside people that do not live within the town limits, but the survey was pretty strongly reflective of resident input. And then we had 48 attendees at the September 2022 community meeting. And then, as I mentioned, from July to September, the full draft document that included the updates from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission was available for public review and input. And then tonight is the 3rd official meeting where we discuss the entire draft plan document. So people have the ability to comment there. Next slide, please. And then I just really wanted to thank and acknowledge the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission for their work on this project. So they approved the process and timeline. They reviewed the survey before it went out to the community. They actively participated in getting the surveys out in the community. So I know we had 2 dates of tabling in Rancho de Napa and then in front of the community center, and then just really trying to verbally encourage people to complete the survey. Of course, they were there at the community meeting and then received the presentations from the consultant team and then reviewed 2 drafts of the plan. So I really want to acknowledge and thank them for their input in this process. But of course, they're appointed members of our community and we see their input as community input as well. Next slide, please. So the final part is really the recommendations. And so with the assistance of the consultants, staff drafted the recommendations and we put them into 3 categories that made sense, which would be parks and facilities, programs, events, and services, and then policies that we would look at. And so now we're going to kind of dive deeper into that piece of it. Oh, there's another slide. So I did want to just say before we dive deeper into the piece of that at the July Parks and Rec meeting, there were 3 kind of main things that came up that staff addressed before we brought the September draft to them. One of them was a discussion around leaving the access to a pool item in the plan, and the thought process was, is that really feasible? Is that going to ever happen? Should we just take that out? And really staff advised to leave the item in the plan just based on the robust amount of community feedback we received about that, and that you never really know. A future option could arise, a partnership could come to fruition, and I think it just acknowledges that our community said that a lot, that they miss having access to a pool. Also, shade is a priority in our future projects for parks and outdoor areas. And so staff updated for broader inclusion of shade solutions in all of our future projects. There was also a request for more information on fiscal and staffing resource estimates in the grid. So we added a column, obviously these are estimates, but based on what we would see as broad categories of what the costs of certain items would be for staffing, added staffing, and or the project cost, just so it has some visual to take a look at. All right, so diving into it, and what I maybe would suggest is if you have specific questions as we go through each category, if that's okay, Mayor, parks and facilities, and then we'll stop
thanks.
there, and then we'll go into programs, and then we'll go into policy. So these are the recommendations based on the information that we had from the community feedback and the Parks and Recreation Commission. So for parks and facilities, we heard a lot about the community really sees and appreciates the high level of maintenance that we have for our parks and facilities here in Yountville, and that a goal should be to always try to maintain that level of maintenance, and so we included that. We heard from a lot of responses that some sort of dog run, dog exercise park is a high priority for our community, so that was included. And then next slide, please. The access to a swimming pool, which we talked about earlier, we decided to leave in with kind of an unknown. I have other as a timeline because we don't really know what that could look like. The mile markers on trails and paths is something that came up. And that is a project that was already underway with Blue Zones, and so it could be a near-term project to complete. Next slide, please. The shade structures and picnic park and facility areas. So you've already approved a budget for Yountville Community Park and the Community Center Plaza in this current fiscal year. And then as we move forward with CIP planning in the future, we'll continue to chip away at that. A comprehensive park and trails map was something that came up. Again, that's something that was already underway with Blue Zones, and we'll come to you in the future as an informational item to share the work that was done on that. Next slide, please. specifically plaza improvements at the community center. And so those, you did approve a budget for some of those changes, and then we're starting a process soon to explore how we can continue evolving that. And it could be more budget requests in the future, depending on what comes out of that focus group. But that's in progress. Then access to a fitness facility and gym is something that came up. I think we all kind of know the history of that we had a small gym here, it went away. But that's something that we've continued to hear that we see as long-term. So that would mean up to 5 years, depending on finding a site or alternate arrangements for that. So that completes the, if you want to go back one, sorry, the parks and facilities piece of that. And so maybe if we want to stop there and talk about any questions or also anything that the council sees is missing or has questions about, we could discuss.
Okay, we'll take this one. First, we'll use our button. So we see Councilmember Tripp would like to speak or with a question.
Yes, I have a question. And now's not the time to compliment you on the plan, but but I would, and it's
Thank you.
huge undertaking and a great inventory. So so my question, not surprisingly, I had two questions. One is, I think at one time you had mentioned when I've asked about the dog park that a number of people put that on the survey, something like 30%, and I won't get into why. I think that that's really a nice community amenity, not just for the dogs, but can really have a nice social aspect for people. So my question on the dog park is, and I don't really need to, I read the history again, and actually I had spoken to some people about it, but was putting it in the time frame of medium to long term. How did you kind of ascertain that? And given, there's different options, everything from a physically structured dog park to just time for people to let their dogs off leash. Is it possible to move some of that more up to near term, given it was, I think, a really popular idea?
Yeah, I think as Brad mentioned before, this was going on long before he came here. So we've had some really great brainstorming sessions, how we could implement some things on kind of a trial basis to see how they work. And there are very short-term, things that we could implement. Maybe we've discussed off-leash hours in certain parks. So it's really, that's something we could roll out fairly easily with some additional signage and potentially some additional amenities, on a small scale. As we work towards the kind of the longer term, medium to longer term idea of can we site an actual fenced in space for dog exercise. So, as you know, we talk about being built out. We don't have kind of unused space currently, but I think staff has really worked hard and is already thinking about, well, how could we better utilize existing space? I included the information on the dog park history just because it's come up twice now in my term here and not moved forward, but I think there's a reason it keeps coming up, right? So we need to figure out how we can try to meet that need within our, current resources or then potentially resources that come forward in the future. We're not, there's parcels out there that we know will be changing. And so, but no, I think that as we move into the end of the presentation and we talk about kind of what we can do, and as we come out of the council adopts this, like there are things in the near term we can try very easily. But as far as an actual dog run exercise park, I do think it could be more of a medium term project if we're actually constructing something.
Well, and I understand the impediments, but part of the plan is it is somewhat aspirational too.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, and as you alluded to, different parcels might become available, and so you just never know.
Yeah.
So anyway, my vote would be whatever we could do near term. And then my other question was on the swimming pool. I was really interested and I understand the history of the swimming pool, so I'm not really going to go there. But the idea of a water play area, those have become really popular where it's like a fountain and there's only 2 inches of water. and the kids could play.
Yeah, that was actually noted as a specific thing in the general plan.
And I was really interested in that. And so I wondered if it's possible to maybe give that its own separate, because it's different from access to a swimming pool. And again, of course, it all costs money, but it might be something that's more feasible and would certainly be attractive, I think, for the community. So that was my other question and comment on this section. Thank you.
And to the water park idea, that I didn't go through all your resolutions because of the links, but there is a resolution that came before the council, I'm just going to say maybe 7 years ago, something like that. And the council talked about it, but I think it was maybe 2016. And of course, it was a drought year. And so it failed because of the drought. So you might want to just.
I think we looked at that when you approved the renovations at Yountville Community Park. It was something that was being
Right.
analyzed at that point.
Right.
For that
So,
park.
Just for, if that's on there, I think you probably captured that resolution, I would imagine, in that list. 'Cause you're
Somewhere.
pretty thorough.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not to say we couldn't look at it again.
Absolutely.
No, it's historical,
Yeah.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Councilmember McKee Cant.
Thank you. I also wanted to echo the idea of some kind of water function relief for, if it's going to take a while for shade, and I see that it's in midterm, something for those 100-degree days and kids that are here, so multi kind of family use. And then just a quick question about blue zones with the mile markers and the trail maps. I am curious, how long have you been partnering with them? Because I know when the idea of the mile markers came up at the community meeting in September, it was kind of cool, low-hanging fruit that we could, easily achieve. And you said you already kind of had it in the works, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, we had already been talking to them about the map piece even back then, and then that came up, and then because obviously we had compiled all the data and had the outcomes from the consultants way before the plan was finished. And so it was like, well, we could implement this as part of that park map program. So, they have a certain amount of projects in each municipality that they need to be working on. And this one seemed to be a no-brainer in a, low impact way. You'll see it. It's going to come forward to you. A low impact way that goes on to our existing poles and everything, but helps people know, oh, this is a 1.5 mile loop.
I love it. Yeah, it's an asset for the town.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing no other questions, maybe you can move on to your
Sure.
next section.
All right, next slide, please. So this is specific to programming, events and services. So we heard from the community again that they really find a high importance and need for recreation programming and community events in our community, and maintaining that high quality of life and that level of services is something that they would like to see ongoing. So obviously we included that as maintaining a high level of programming and events provided through Parks and Recreation. And that's an ongoing thing. We will always try to achieve that. It came up for a drop-in use area for games and activities at the community center. That's something that we could accomplish fairly easily in near term, and then staff will work to survey and research, that specific thing and what it is that we can do to meet that need. Next slide, please. We saw responses interested in additional youth and family programming. So we've kind of gone in waves with that. Obviously, we know our demographics here in Yountville largely are adults. And when the school closed, we lost a lot of they may or may not have been residents here, but they definitely utilized our programs, because a lot of times where your children go to school becomes really the community for you. So when the school closed, we really pivoted quite a bit, but we're slowly trying to bring back things that really are youth and family serving. We always held on to the core, the summer camp and the Bright Camp program, but more of event type things for families. And so in the near term, we'll continue to survey and research interests and adjust our programming.
we love our events in Yountville, don't we? So additional community events. So again, that'll come back to really taking the pulse of the community. What are the things that we're looking at seeing? Again, there's things I said near term because we can, we're always looking, planning for the next season. We just got done setting everything through May, and then we'll look at summer. And so we have the ability to really adapt pretty quickly. And, I know I've heard some really great ideas, even from Councilmember McKee Cant about some pop-up things on the plaza. And so there's a lot, that we can easily build in as we move through to the next season. But then, I really see I say staff to survey in a lot of these, because a lot of what will come out of this is staff taking, okay, Robin, deep cleansing breath.
Sorry.
No.
Wasn't
Robin
like an
jumped.
alarm talking too
Glad it
much.
was you.
Time's up. That, a lot of these things will, coming out of this will be staff really surveying the community on specific things, not so broad, to really focus where we go. And then again, the kind of multi-generational programs. And so, yes, we may have a lot of, majority of adults living here in Yountville, but they may have children, they may have grandchildren, and how do we continue to encourage multi-generational programming? Next slide, please. We heard a little bit, and I worded this in a kind of a broad way, but programming to serve a more diverse audience. So a little bit of the feedback we heard was, we want more classes focused towards men, specifically around Golden Ticket and other things. And I kind of just made it more diverse audience. And so it helps us to better focus as we're looking for new classes. And then programs that attract the Veterans Home residents. And so we're always looking at ways to better connect what we do down here with what's happening up on the hill, and making some progress in that. And making it easy for them, and to kind of breaking down those barriers, but then also what are the things that would interest that population that they're not already being served with at the home. And then also programs for working adults held after work hours. So, we tend to focus a lot on our retirement age adults, and do things during the day, but we need to have kind of a balance of that as well, because we do have a level of working adults in town as well. And so that's it for programs, events, and services. So if we want to ask any questions or make any notes in that area, this would be a good time.
Any questions from council members? I don't see any lights, so let's keep moving.
Okay, so next up is policies. So the things in this category really are like, how do we structure something? And a lot of times it would come down to a council policy. Staff would obviously initiate that process, but it really comes down to the council saying we're willing to make a new policy to address this. So part of that, what came up was idea of kind of a resident sliding scale of pricing. So we would research how we could potentially structure something like that. We do currently have the resident rate of discounted rate of programming, which is 15%. But we could definitely look at, changing that as the council directs moving forward. So I said near term to medium term, it's really based on, your work plan and time, how we kind of start to work these policies through. And then also quite a few times where the concept of free programs for resident seniors came up quite a bit. So that again would be, a policy decision that we could work through and come up with a plan with, analyze how the impacts, and move forward from there. So those are the two items that fell under policies. I know I had a very good discussion with Councilmember Reeves yesterday on potentially some additions to this area. So I'll let you push your button when we get to that. But that's really it for policies that came out of the community input process. So I'm happy to answer any questions or get feedback.
Okay. Councilmember Reeves, since you were called upon, and then I'll come back to Councilmember Tripp.
Well, I, like everyone else up here, feel like this is a great addition to all of our information for residents and for the council to make good decisions. But I specifically wanted to talk to Samantha about the policy portion of this document, or whether there is some room for the council to create policy that would help with decisions in the short and long term for the PRAC commissioners to base their decisions on when faced with a qualitative decision that could be just made on a feeling rather than like for a ZDRB member who has the statutes and the codes and all the things that are the framework for their decisions. So I felt like it would be a great thing for this council to talk about what kind of policies do we want to see for the preservation of our parks and also for the future development and maybe protection of certain aspects of the park. I used the example of, well, if there were a call for lighting in a certain park, how would the decision be made if the council hasn't set a policy that says something like we value the night sky, the dark night sky, and that we don't want to contribute to light pollution, and so our standards will be thus and such. And the same thing for grass areas. I think our parks are tremendously used because they're attractive, because they're so green, and that we as a community discourage private property owners from planting turf. And so maybe a policy would come out of protection of the turf in parks so that any future development in the park maintains a certain amount of turf. It's just examples like that that the council could kick around to add as a policy paper to go along with this report.
Councilmember Tripp.
I wanted to address the question of policies on the resident sliding scale and the free program for seniors. And it also relates to programs that attract veterans home residents. And I, as a policy, would like the council to really try to address, to make sure that the programs are accessible for all of our residents. I was really surprised when I reread the housing element that 40% of Yountville's residents are low income, which means 60% are at the moderate or above. And of the 40% that are low income, almost 16% are extremely low income. So that would be 30% of the median income. So that's 16% of our residents are extremely low income. So, and in total, 40% of our residents are low income, below them. So I would really like us, and I do know that we have a scholarship program, but I think that hurdles that require people to come in and admit to financial issues or can really discourage people. So I'd like to see if we can make an effort to try to have some sort of a easily accessible subsidy program that doesn't require a huge amount of administration, which is a really tricky needle to thread because if it gets too complicated, it just becomes overwhelming to administer. One idea that I had early on, and I still would like to propose it, is that the vets be allowed either to come and attend as a matter of policy for free or at a $25 fee just to make sure people will actually show up. Sometimes if it's free, people sign up and don't come. Because when we're talking about 40% of people in low income, $100 is not an insignificant amount. So I've talked to Samantha about that a while back, and yeah, so I really feel, and that is something that is a policy issue. So I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I think we need to pay attention to that. We have a very diverse community. We have people here with huge amounts of resources, but then 40% of our residents are, below, are low income. So that's really something to pay attention to make sure our programs meet everybody's needs. And I don't think the financial impact would be that great to the town. I do know it would cost something. So, and I know we already realistically subsidize, in some sense, the golden ticket program. It doesn't pay for itself. So anyway, that I would really like to see that emphasized as part of the policy document.
So on policies, I also have a thought on a policy here. I think I would like to, I think this is a great plan. I have a feeling you're going to get a lot of good council approval of this tonight, but maybe something for the Parks and Rec Commission to consider would be to, when you, on the very first section, there was a lot of short-term, near-term, long-term, and there was a couple dollar signs, dash, $4 or $5 signs. So to maybe really kind of go back and not really get precise numbers, but maybe something a little more with a little more precision, because, and then once they analyze that, they may want to make a recommendation to the council that we could create another policy with another reserve fund for maybe some of the really expensive items. Like one thing I would like for them to come back and ask me for, because I think we kind of talked about it, was, the lawn and the water. It's always, water issues are never going to go away. And I think it's Veterans Park. I know John sitting back there, he can probably correct me, already has a gray water pipe for tertiary treated water, but it's really the pipes that cost a lot of money to take the water to some of the lawn that, to me, you just have to have grass in a park. So but grass needs water. So, and that would be long term. It would also be very expensive. But again, we now have, really great reserve funds that have been built up over 15, 20 years now. Well, 15 really is when we really started those. So if we don't start some of those now, but that would be something that, but I'd like to really have the Parks and Rec Advisory really kind of look into that and, just really see if that's something that would kind of help get to some of these bigger, more long-term expensive goals. So, Councilmember McKee Camp.
Thanks. So I want to commend the thoroughness and the thoughtfulness of the not only the original all aspects of the public outreach, but and the open time for comments, but the thoughtfulness in researching and documenting the town's history. It made me feel so much more informed and so much more pride in knowing the history and how we acquired different parcels. But I think as we're looking back to look forward, some of the policies we can find in what was established and written, the vision in 78 upholds today still that the center was built as a multi-purpose space and it would serve also for recreation and senior center. Check, we've got that done. The space was established to exude a classy informalness. And doesn't that just describe our town? I mean, it's very fitting. And it also describes most of our businesses. But the one that kind of aligns with Councilmember Reeves' concerns was the values. On page 14 of the plan, it was the values of protecting our public lands, to continue embracing environmental benefits that improve water quality and protect groundwater while lowering ground temps with trees that contribute to healthy air. This was so very indicative of the forward-thinking leaders that were looking at our parks plans back then. So this council and future councils must continue to support these values and not sidestep them to cut down on maintenance. I think that having this document is a guiding principle and it can help future councils.
Vice Mayor Knight.
Thank you, Director Holland, and plenty of the people I like to thank as we get farther on in the conversation. But in looking at the report, this is a great conversation. What I recognize, I think we all recognize, is what you've done is you've created kind of a living document. And I think in short, in your staff report, I think just reading a couple of these sentences really help create clarity of, I think, what we're trying to do, and what hopefully is what the Parks and Rec will do in the future, is that you say, why have a plan? The plan is a tool for a longer range strategy for the creation, optimization, and maintenance of our community assets and programs. And unlike some master plans, Yountville does not focus on our one park or programs, but rather the overview of the system, documenting where we stand today and plans for the future. The outcome is a framework for improving and evolving the parks and recreation facilities, programs, and services to best serve the residents of Yountville into the future. So I think you've done a great job with this report. I think in terms of policies, what I've heard here too, and as I've thought about is how do we and when do we maybe add items where we talk about the importance of the community for natural parks, green grass, and then we've had these discussions over the years of protecting the dark sky, and we do that with our lightings and our streets, and we've hopefully focused that on our parks, that when we have lighting that's directed down, we want to be sure people are safe in the parks, but we want to focus on a natural environment and protecting dark sky. And just recently, I mean, with all the work you've done, I think we need to talk about how our public facilities and parks and recs will really promote Yountville as a blue zone community, and maybe we should really at some point in the future really step up to try to be a blue zone community, as there are in other places in California. I think this plan is really getting us there, but I think maybe emphasizing the parks and how that we are here and wanting to have focus on the natural and the beauty and the health is an important part of this plan, and hopefully it gives direction for future Parks and Rec Advisory Commission members to bring back ideas to you and to council. So, thank you.
Okay, so with that, we have a resolution to get to, but
I just wanted to say one thing.
Manager
Pardon
has
me.
a
No, I just wanted to respond to Vice Mayor Knight on two things. One, as I'm looking through your general plan, you do have a policy on outdoor lighting that does already, in essence, consider standards that support dark sky principles. So that exists in your policy documents. And then second, as it relates to blue zones, as I understand it, going to look over at our deputy town clerk, we're on track. I think you were saying March or April to meet all the criteria to be adopted as a blue zone community. Is that accurate?
We're actually on track to become an official work site by the end of December, beginning of January. So the town of Yountville as a workplace will be an official site. But in terms of expanding that to the community at large, I think that would be the walking paths and those additional marquee projects that we can continue to work with Blue Zones projects on.
And it's
Right.
also meeting certain criteria for everything from what's sold in your grocery stores. There's a whole list of things that to become a Blue Zone community, and I know Whitney has been working and chipping away at some of that as well with the business community. I'm not sure of a timeline, but I know that it's in progress.
Yeah, I think I heard, two more things two more boxes we needed to check, and I think they're in progress. One being the map, the other being a pilot project, which we've been working on. So anyway, point is I think in the near term, we will both be a site workspace and we'll be a community. Those things are and not that I'm completely familiar with all of the general plan policies, but what I do find particularly useful is the appendice that gets into the implementation steps. Because that's sort of a general summary. So when you have the time, when you review that, there's a lot in there. In a town of our size, you are able to get specific in a general plan, which is a nice feature. So I would tell you, as you've been talking, I was going through those. The other thing that is in there, which Sam pointed out, is within your park, there is a I'm flipping for the actual language, but what I refer to now is spray grounds, which are playgrounds that have water features. So they call them spray grounds. That's just a term. So it's not a water park. You got to be careful. Water park people envision water slides and all of those things. But that is also in your policy document, is to aspire towards. It sounds like the drought maybe short-circuited that, but that exists in your general plan.
So,
I'm
sorry, go ahead. Vice Mayor Knight.
I have just a question, Mayor. Will we talk about, I have some other thoughts to bring up. Do you have another part that we'll talk about, or are we just opening up to talk about the document in
Can I
general,
just circle back on policies really
Yeah,
quickly, and then
thank
we
you.
can talk more generally? So based on what came up today, I might suggest adding in potentially 2 other policy recommendations if the council agrees. One would be around exploring council policies specific to park and outdoor space use and guiding future projects. So kind of a broad nature there. And then, as you're all aware, we have green initiatives as part of what you're focusing on most likely moving forward and coming out of some of your goal setting. And then, so it could be, I feel like you'll probably discuss more of a larger umbrella policies that we might look at, and then how those trickle down into Parks and Recreation specifically. So when you talk about the green grass or the different things that really are around, what we kind of loosely calling it Yountville Green kind of initiatives that might come forward. But we could put something in there around implementing those new policies and standards as they apply to Parks and Recreation moving forward. So something policy-wise we could add into there for that. I also maybe, Margie, with your idea of, reserve, analysis of reserve funding for something like a recycled water project, I think could fall under that kind of Yountville Green initiative because of, it's a priority that we keep our grass green, but we know water could be an issue. How do we start investing in recycled water use in our own parks, not just piping it out? So does that sound?
No, that's fine, as long as you kind of think about that with the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, because it would come under, one of the council, when we will be going through next year all of our policies on our reserve funds. So maybe creating one, but I'd like to, hear from, from you guys first to kind of advise us if you think that makes sense, because those are long-term expensive projects.
Absolutely.
And, we can start putting our nickels and dimes away into another bucket if you feel like that would be something that would be of value.
Okay, thank you.
Let's
So
see.
one more slide.
Hit your button. I know you
Somebody's got a button.
hit your button. I know you, Council.
One more slide.
Okay, one more
Sorry.
slide and
Yep.
I promise, just one more slide.
one more slide.
The last one's
Okay,
just a
then we'll come
picture.
back and we'll have
So we can obviously, after this, have general questions and provide feedback. I just thought in my mind makes sense to break those 3 categories out. Obviously, we're taking additional public comment, and tonight, providing direction for changes and adopting it as your input is, as what I just said as I recapped it. Or you could always provide feedback and ask me to bring it back at a later date. And then really there's actually 2 slides. I'm really sorry. So once it's adopted, I think that's kind of what the question I get too is like, well, what does this even mean at this point? So, obviously staff's job then is to really put a work plan into place. And in those near-term things, some of them you've already approved a budget for, are already in process. And those longer-term things will start building into those work plans. And some of the priorities behind that may come out of your own goal setting series that you're going to be doing. And so it'll help us as staff to really put those timelines together as far as where do we bring this forward? Is it a 2-year CIP? Is it a 5? Is it a 1? And really looking at those priorities and, the low-hanging fruit things that are near term that are already in progress, are listed here, and they're also called out in the plan. There's actually 2 more slides, sorry. And then as I mentioned, the next one I've already said, which is really just planning for those medium and long-term projects. And again, though, bringing it back to what I said earlier, it doesn't stifle new ideas or things that are opportunistic that could come up, or things that we can try tried that are very low cost that we don't need to budget for in 2 years that we could implement now to see, you know, whether it's a trial basis and then we decide it's working great and we're going to, you know, amend park rules and ordinances to move forward to allow this in the future forever, you know, which could potentially be off-leash dog, you know, hours in certain parks as an example. So, so that is really where all ended, and any general feedback, of course. And then I know we do have some members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission with us this afternoon, which I really appreciate, that may want to say something. So I appreciate your time and all of your feedback and interest in this.
Okay, so I'll wrap up with final questions or comments from the council. Then I'm hoping one of these great Parks and Rec Advisory, I know the chair is here, will come up and give us some thoughts, or anybody, and then we'll come back and propose a resolution, debate that, and finish this off. So with that, Vice Mayor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. There was just one of the issues in looking through it, on page 31 and 32 of the document in paths and trails. The report classifies class 1, 2, and 3 paths. But I know in talking with the town manager that class 4 path is been formulated now that really sets the ability to divide an active drive road from a bike path. And so I think it's something that we should add to this, because there may be opportunities and some brief conversations. I know the town managers talked about, you know, whether it's in part of our greater path systems, how do we reach and safely get residents or visitors out to the Napa River Ecological Reserve. And maybe a class 4 path could be an option for that. Or potentially, I know a lot of veterans talk about safety of paths for for them to move back and forth between the home and the town, and maybe a class 4 path would be a short-term viable option for them to discuss with the administration. So I would think it would be a good thing for us to add class 4, a definition of class 4 bike paths in the path and trail section. And I just wanted to note too, thank you for, in that report you talk about regional trails and the regional trail that was talked about years before on the west side of 29. Because if you're reading in the Register, the Vine Trail is now actively looking how to link our path from just south of town here to the rest of the valley. And it's very possible, you know, they may, I think that opportunity of potentially that path on the west side of 29 linking is a good idea. So I'm glad that it's in the report. And class 4 bike path, I think, is an important add-on. So thank you.
Councilmember McKee-Cant.
So in just going back briefly, the history called for the center to be inviting, accessible for all, and able to evolve, which you're clearly showing that you are. And I think it's key that we underscore to provide unmet community needs. But I also want to make sure that that includes business a little in there as well. So unmet additional needs kind of delves into the town, our need to supplement the activities we once had for visitors. There was this thing that used to happen here that was called shopping. So since we don't have a lot of retail activities as well as kind of ecotourism models, maybe if we had some of those class 4 paths, we would. But I'd like to work with the plan to see if we can elevate offerings and kind of aiming towards that classy informalness to add for things for visitors to partake in. And we had talked, I know you and I have talked about some of the pop-up things, but that is busking, outdoor activities like Qigong or Tai Chi or line dancing, watching an artist paint, mimes, character painting, magicians. And before anybody thinks I'm running amok and trying to, create a circus-like atmosphere, I'm not. I think it's important that these ideas don't happen on the same day, but that they be kind of pop-ups. And we don't want to lessen our appeal and appear touristy. Rather, I'd like to think that we can create small and significant, like, wow experiences with the goal of drawing people in, like, into the courtyard, into the parks, and into our establishments to witness and partake pop-ups that create interest and in more of a drop-in style. There was a report with the National League of Cities that we were issued. It specifies that leaders can reinvigorate retail commerce, and the number one thing listed was that local leaders have critical role to play in promoting growth, equity, resilience for their community through investments in programming and resources in public spaces. So I kind of feel like that's exactly what we're doing through our Parks and Rec team. As a destination, we're shy for diversity in retail and limited for activities being offered. And I'd like to ask the town to meet the current unmet needs by exploring and underwriting experiential offerings that will support our existing businesses and offer visitors something to do to keep them here between breakfast and dinner. Offerings that create more value for staying here, create memories that people are going to go home and talk about, that support our chamber's marketing efforts to attract visitors here and also new businesses, and that differentiate us from other towns in wine country. And lastly, another idea I wanted to mention, I know that this has been discussed for the community center area. Perhaps we could make that side courtyard, if that picture was up towards the back parking lot, feel more intimate and less like a pass-through from the parking lot. If we had movable planters that include edible gardens planted and maintained by some of the master gardeners here in town that could even do demonstration kind of gardens. We could decorate and create privacy and intimacy while at the same time demonstrate our agricultural roots and complement any fun barbecues or events that we have planned in that space in the future.
Okay, well, so with that, we have public out there, and we also have members from the the Parks and Rec Commission. Would you like to come up and just share some of your thoughts? Didn't want to put you on the spot, just giving you a great opportunity.
Carol did such a good job in making sure everybody filled out the original survey. She brought it to Bocce, and
we did,
was-
and we got some free little giveaways from the town for Rancho. It was a scraper, it's like a soap scraper. Like a freebie, so if they filled out the survey, they couldn't take it back to their home. We had
It
to
was a
wait there.
dish scraper.
It was a
We were
dish
in the middle
scraper.
of
It
a
was just
drought,
fun.
so.
Like, no, you can't take
I
it
missed
back.
that one.
You just got to
Shoot.
do it, fill it out.
I
there.
have
So
a
we got
huge
quite
box,
few. Yeah.
Robin.
No, we
So
got.
can you state your name just for TV
Oh
land
yes,
out there?
Carol
Thanks.
Shemang, 6468. My address?
No, you don't
Or-
need an
okay.
address now.
Park and Rec Commission Advisory Chair.
Okay.
There. I just want to say this, all this information here, as one of the commissioners, we gave ideas on this, but it's unbelievable how much work Samantha and her staff put into this. And so this is the packet that you're pretty much looking at from here. This is from our July meeting that we went through, of the original things that we went through. First time to be able to discuss that and to make recommendations, and that came to you before our September meeting, because you said we meet every other month. But I think it's fabulous what we've got here. And without going into all the details of this, the one thing that we talked about during the policies during our meetings as well is that I know the issue of low pricing for some of the seniors for some of the tickets, but it still is an unbelievable $75 price for residents to have for the semester, basically, for all those courses. And some of the courses, there's an additional fee for materials, but there's other ones that many of them don't have that. So it's just unbelievable. You could be here every day, and I know some of them are. You could be here if you wanted to take advantage of those. And over the last couple of years, especially after COVID, when the classes went back in person from Zoom, I know then at the non-resident, we've got quite a few, and I don't have the statistics, and Sam's got it, but quite a few non-residents that are also in the classes, and the ones that I participate in. There's quite a few from Napa that come on up, and St. Helena as well. So it's a nice mixture of that. And I think we've got there's more programs too that the park has than St. Helena and Napadu are just the size of our community and what our staff is and we've got here. And the music in the park, that's one thing I think since 17, the number of people that have come every year and how are the Sundays, and it gets more and more and more. And you look on the crowd and a lot of it, it's not just your neighbor next door or somebody you work with or the word has got out. And so it's a very popular event as well. But thank you for taking your time into looking at all this, and hopefully we can get this worked out and Sam can get on her next job. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for coming up and giving us your opinion. Anybody else like to come up and say anything? See no interest. I'm going to bring this back to the council because we have a resolution. So we are going to ask the council to propose a resolution and give me a second, and then we'll come back and debate and vote.
And I would just offer mayor and council as, I guess, a matter of efficiency. We're taking notes. We obviously have the video, everything that's been said to date. We can incorporate into, the document in some way, unless somebody disagrees with what's said. And then I do think you can debate whether or not you want to include it. But generally, I think everything that's been said, we can incorporate, and we will. So you don't need to repeat yourself. But if there's an issue that someone heard, I think I would suggest that you talk about it and give staff clear direction.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So, do we have a motion and a second?
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 23-4240, adopting the 2023 to 2028 Yountville Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
And I'll second it without hearing from anybody else. So let's bring it back to council for further discussion, or then we'll vote. Anybody else? Okay. Screens are lighting up. Councilmember Tripp.
I wanted, in particular, I'm cognizant of what the town manager said of not repeating, but I really was taken with what Robin said about, I don't know if pop-up is the right word, but those type of events. Drop-in for the community center and
in the parks.
And in the parks. And so I just wanted, because I didn't see that anywhere here specifically. A lot of other things we said were sort of amplified ideas already in here, but I didn't see that anywhere in here. And so I would be a big proponent of that idea.
We do have under, if it fits the request under programming, additional community events. And so those ideas, I think, could definitely filter under that, if that seems appropriate to you.
Vice Mayor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just wanted to formally thank Director Holland and Parks and Rec staff, town staff, and the Parks and Rec Advisory Commission members for all that you do for the community. Thank you for all the meetings you went through and for the leadership that you provide. So thank you. I guess I definitely support this program, and I do support everything that I've heard in terms of what I think this council has been suggesting, and all that has just really is summarized in the staff report about what is the plan. And one of those last items about the benefits of the master plan is developing recommendations and implementing strategy to continue moving forward. So I know Director Holland, you'll do that. And maybe the only suggestion I would have is that just like many of the city meetings and league meetings we go to where they encourage city councils to review regularly the general plan, is that maybe just programming helps create tradition of programming maybe at least once a year to agendize the master plan for parks and having the committee review it, because ideas pop up, and as they are, and so talking about it once a year will help us as we go through budgeting too. So I also want to thank you for all the information you put in there about the California Veterans Home, Yountville Veterans Home. They're a big part of our community, and there's important information in the document that talks about the home. And the last thing I just want to say is that Parks and Rec, the programs here are vital to the community. I think I just really believe that for many residents, the only place, there may be their first touch point in the community and maybe their only touch point is the programs that you put on, and their understanding and their relationship with the town occurs through our Parks and Rec program. So as we move forward as a council, it's important for us, I think, as we strategize and budget, to really provide the resources for Parks and Rec and for you to be able to do programming and do all this planning ideas that we talk about, saying, oh, think about this and do that. You need to have the time and the staff to be able to do that. And so I look forward when we talk about strategy sessions in the first of the year and budgeting to provide you the resources to vision for the community. So thank you for all that you do.
Councilmember Reeves.
I just wanted to say that I support all of the ideas and strategies brought up by all the other council members and would like them included in the plan, and that I support the plan with those additions.
Thank you. Councilmember Mickey Cant.
Just want to thank Director Holland and your team too. I mean, to have, again, the history and the forward thinking included in the plan makes it a home run. I think the plan accounts for programming that's vital for our community. And further that, I think with our focus, we can add vibrancy to our business community as well. I think it's going to be up to us to just elevate, and the rising tide's going to lift all the boats out there too. So our businesses are going to want to have some pop-ins too. Thanks.
And as Samantha's pointed out, this has been going on for 2+ years, so I've seen many versions of it. But I remember the first time the concept came up, and I just thought to myself, well, I know where all the parks are. Why do we need a plan? So, but now I know. And I think just from the robust conversation tonight, just the message that I think I'm sending from all of the council as well as the community, you're such a visible department, but it's probably a department that probably touches more people's lives, even though they don't really know about what John does back there with streets and roads and, all the pipes and plumbing and all that other stuff. So not to dismiss that, but it's very upfront to all the community and very vital for, a very vibrant community. So thanks to you and all the Parks and Rec for all the meetings you've had going through all this. And thanks for letting me kind of contribute to some of the history, digging through all my files. I had a great time doing that. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. So is voting open?
The vote is now open.
All right.
And that passes unanimously.
So there we go. We now have a plan I didn't know we really needed, but we have a plan that is more incredible than I ever thought it could be too. So congratulations, everybody, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Could I just say thank you? And I think that I would just like to applaud that just this particular council, but also for 13 years of past councils, the emphasis and importance that Yountville puts on what we do is not common in most cities. And I think it's gotten more common, but even 13 years ago when I started here, I think the emphasis on the vibrancy of this community and how we serve our specific residents has just always been a priority, and you should be applauded for that as well. So thank you for all your support, and we'll keep doing it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Small but mighty. Thank you.
So with that, we are moving on to administrative item C.
Mayor, is it possible we could take a short break for a few minutes?
Why don't we let's go ahead and take 10 minutes.
Brought up the history. We're, a year and a half away from it.
troopers.
Okay, the council is back, and we are on administrative item C. So we are now going to consider approving the argument in favor of Measure U, the GAN limit. So, town manager, are you going to get us going on this?
Yeah, there's no formal report. Both Mackenzie and I are here to guide you. But I will tell you that, as you know, you've done this a number of times, and both the proposed language in the ballot measure and the arguments in favor are closely modeled after past, past efforts to do to approve this. You are, as you know, the signatures, or the I guess it's the signatures to the arguments in favor, and rather than form a committee, we decided that we would do it here. And so if there is any edits or any changes, there are limitations, which I think Mackenzie could advise you on, both in kind of the length, and I know that there's also a number of rules around what you can and can't say. But I would tell you, since you've done this many times in the past, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this will be the 10th time, something like that, in the past. This is obviously passed, and this is critical to the ongoing operations of the town to maintain these increased revenue streams. But we're happy to, again, answer any questions or give any advice.
Any questions from the council on this item? Councilmember Tripp.
I just had a question. I was looking at the information in the little box. Now I can't pull it up, but I think it was on your staff report. Is that the language that would appear on the ballot?
Yes.
Okay. So my only thought was, we all know what TOT is, but in the actual argument, you do define it. But I just wondered if we should write out transit occupancy tax instead of just TOT, because people reading that may or may not know what that means.
The only issue there, I think, is we have one word, like there's 75-word limit, and I heard it's 74 words. So
I think it's 72, so maybe we could.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
If we can do that within the word limitation, but I think that was the reason we used the acronym or used the abbreviation. So we will confirm that, but if so, we can make that change.
And then my other question is, because it says, and again, I don't have it right in front of me, TOT and sales tax. So I remember we talked about TOT, but sales tax is also included in the GAN?
Yes.
Okay, so that is sales tax that applies to everybody in Yountville, not just visitors.
Correct.
Right, okay.
So I've read through this, and I remember, just be careful when you're counting those words, because I know we had that same conversation over and over in past years about the TOT, and we just didn't really want to run up against having any problems at all with that ballot measure. So I really don't think there's a voter in Yountville who doesn't know what TOT is. But that's when we've had this multiple times over the years, and we ran into that, having that word count, which is super critical.
It is.
And the challenge of that, if somebody else decides to
if you do it
that.
wrong, and you have to redo it.
Whatever works, but that's just the past history of.
Maybe as a suggestion, if y'all agree, because you used TOT twice. In the first case, I think I would feel comfortable saying hotel and sales tax, because that's obviously one word. It doesn't have to spell transit. No?
Well, I think we already approved this question on October 17th.
Oh, that's a good point.
So the ballot question isn't actually before you. It's the ballot, the
The
measure in
arguments,
favor.
you're right. I'm sorry.
So,
But next time.
Anyway, just super careful. So, and that's just where the discussion was
Thank you.
before. And
Yeah, no, you're right.
Okay. We didn't want to take any risk whatsoever. And
Already went through that with the, the county recorder or assessor or whoever oversees this. So,
yeah.
But next time we could do that if
Yeah.
that makes more sense.
Yeah, I agree. So the last several that we've kind of gone through, just for the public is, again, it does not raise any tax. It allows us to keep the tax that that's already been generated in our municipality. And the voters have overwhelmingly, in the high 70s percent, approved this in past years. So, there's going to be lining up quite a few things on this. This is going to be on the March ballot. This will be on the March ballot, so I don't think there's a lot going on the March ballot, but I'm happy it's doing that because of our time limit, because November is lining up to be very full. And sometimes people just go down and check yes, 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 or sometimes no, no, no. So I'm very optimistic and hopeful, but I encourage anybody out there who has any questions to reach out to the town staff and get some further explanation about this. So happy we're doing this and thanking our town attorneys for keeping us legit here. So any other, Councilmember Tripp.
So just in terms of passage, it's a majority of the people who vote, because I'm thinking maybe not a lot of people. It's harder to get people to vote in March.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a majority of people who vote.
Correct.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Knight.
Thank you. Just going over timelines. So we've already presented about the ballot measure to the elections department, and we're just approving our arguments in favor tonight. And then what are the other timelines that we await? Is there a response to this arguments in favor that has to act within a certain 10 days or 2 weeks or?
There is. This is your final action. If somebody does choose to present that, they can do that. I think it's directly to the elections officer. It doesn't come through the council. So there are dates that are codified in terms of when they would be submitted, and likewise, once they are submitted, there's follow-up dates to rebuttals if anyone chooses to rebut either an argument in favor or argument against. So those things are all managed through the, I think they call Tudor the county recorder here. Yeah, so he's the elections official, I know, but
Recorder.
That's right.
so that all flows through the county recorder. Yeah.
We should actually.
Councilmember Reeves.
Oh, sorry. I would just offer that the staff report actually provides those dates too. There's a
I'm
December
sorry, thank you.
15th, December
I was just
22nd.
looking at the measure right now.
Yeah, just
so.
for your future reference.
Okay. Councilmember Reeves.
So in this item, are we just going over the wording of the argument?
Yes.
Not the ballot measure? So
Correct.
with that in mind, I was just going to suggest the last paragraph after it says a no vote, then the next paragraph that starts, if this measure. I was thinking that if we could bold the not make it uppercase, but just bold the not, and then separate the last sentence of that paragraph where it says measure you allows, because and make that a separate paragraph line or whatever, because the first sentence is saying this is what is going to happen if you don't vote for it, and then that last sentence is what happens if you do. So it should be separate from that paragraph. So I just, for the ease of reading, and also to make sure that the argument makes sense, I would like to separate those two things.
Anyone have any issue with that?
I have I'm fine with separating those. I'm just a little nervous about making too many bold things. I know when I tend to read stuff, when it's like people start changing fonts and they underline stuff and there's lots of bolds, it's just like, grammar check, say.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not
separating-
married to that,
Yeah.
but I do think that separating would be important.
Yes, I agree. Separating is absolutely fine. As long, and I know this is a template and has to fit within that template too.
I think this has more.
More room.
It just has to be one page, as I understand. I think but we'll make sure it's within the template. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds great to me then if we separate those. I think that makes sense.
I agree.
So staff have all the information you need on this one.
I think we just need you to vote.
So you need a, hold on
Think
a
so.
second, let me go back to, so, okay, if we're gonna approve an argument, then let's vote. Is voting open?
Do we have a
Did we make
motion?
We
and
have to have a motion.
I make a motion to approve the arguments in favor of Measure U language.
I second.
With, will you take the
With,
friendly?
I'm sorry, with the
amendment
change
is-
recommended by Councilmember Reeves.
Which is to separate
Separate the paragraph,
the last paragraph into two.
create a new paragraph for that last sentence.
Okay, I second that.
And you accept that friendly motion? Okay, with that, now.
The vote is now
voting's
open. And that is approved unanimously.
That passes unanimously. Great, and hopefully we can kind of, maybe under informational reports, as we get closer and closer to the election, we can kind of keep bringing this up and keep it in everybody's remembrance and which way the council is recommending. I don't think anybody's probably focused too much on the March election tonight, so we have a few more council meetings between now and then, so let's keep talking it up. Because we don't really do any other advertising or polling or any of that, so,
Can't put a banner out front.
yeah. Well, yeah,
We're not
probably.
campaigning, providing information.
So, but we can talk away, so let's kind of do that. All right, let's move on to administrative item D, where we're going to consider and discuss approving some proposed town council meeting calendars. So, town manager.
Yes, thank you. So this is an attempt to look ahead in terms of both the end of this year and all of next year so that we can hopefully get our schedules straight in terms of meetings. As you know, regular meetings occur on first and third Tuesdays of each month. We've historically created a summer recess at the end of summer by canceling the second meeting in August and the first meeting in September, which we did this year. And then what are referred to as holiday adjustments would be meetings that fall after recognized holidays, in essence, when town hall is closed on Monday, that would be rescheduled as needed. So as needed is important. If it's needed, then we would have to schedule a meeting. And as you all know, we can always schedule special meetings as needed. But the idea would be to try as a staff to not bring items and be able to cancel those meetings, because it does get a little trickier when we're closed the day before. And then finally, we are proposing that we would actually close town offices during the week of Christmas. And that's in order to just provide the staff with a break, but also, you know, when we're open, as you know, we have to staff counters. It becomes tricky as everyone tries to take vacation, and based on my understanding from the staff, there's very little activity. So in many cases, as it was at my previous jurisdiction, the town office is just closed for that week. So that's the proposal that the staff is making, and we'd like your input. Thank you.
All right, I have some input. I'd like to hear council thoughts on this and some discussion. And it pertains to the winter holiday break for 2023, specifically December 27th, 28th, and 29th. I would like to propose for the council consideration that those 3 days this year for our staff, that they don't need to take leave, and that the council could approve a Christmas thank you. And I say that because I think this 2023 has been quite an extraordinary year. We had retirement of a longtime town manager. We had an interim town manager, John Ferns, who needed to step up quickly and keep all the balls in the air. The council then hired our new town manager. I think, probably in a month. We're not going to call you new anymore, but we'll figure out what that date is going to be. And we have a new mayor and we have a new council. And, with all that going on with staff, we had to get trained, informed, and learn a whole lot with all that, different things kind of going on at the staff level and at the top. And we had a lot of training. We learned a lot about governance and with everything else, all the normal activities. This really kind of took an extraordinary amount of time that was over and above what, staff even does in kind of in a normal election year. So I would like to propose that for 2023. 2024, I'm not, we'll see where we go in 2024. But, and I think that what we'd probably need, if the council was in agreement with this Christmas thank you to our entire town staff. And I also wanted to mention, because of all this, and because what, they did for all of us, we're able now to work as a good team to really make great decisions for our community. So our community really benefits, and I think would be part of this Christmas thank you to our staff as well. So, I know we'd probably need to bring this back for some, to make it formal. More, I see Celia shaking her head for the December 5th meeting, but that's kind of my proposal. So, town manager.
Yeah, I think, first of all, thank you, and I know the staff appreciates the gesture, and hopefully, if you all agree, we can work through the details of what that would be. Just to be clear, what I was proposing was to close the town offices, not to require people to take leave. We were discussing that people could work those days, but by closing the town office gives us more flexibility, of course, with scheduling, so we don't have to cover a bunch of stuff. But this, in essence, would provide 3 additional holiday days or floater days or whatever the proper HR term is, which is what we'd have to work out, so that people could just take the time off and not, again, be forced to use leave or we weren't proposing that. We actually couldn't do that, just so you know. Right. So yeah, I think there's a workable way to do it. We'll have to kind of make sure that we're following all the HR rules, but
and I know that Samantha probably has camp for the kiddies, and hopefully, John, we're not going to have any atmospheric rivers for your emergency staff, but that I know you'll be out there covering whether it's a holiday or not. So whatever information needs to kind of come back to us. But so maybe can we just kind of talk about this one thing and then kind of go back to the other things? So, council member thoughts, council member Tripp.
Yeah, that kind of your thought anticipated my question, which was whether people would be required to take leave or not. And I do support the idea, if it's possible. We do have, as we know, collective bargaining agreements and whatnot. So you got to cover the legal bases. And one thing that occurs to me is how you treat people equitably who do end up having to work. Because there will need to be some staff here. And so that kind of becomes an issue. And then, right, how do you handle those days if they do end up having to work? So I do support it in principle, but I could see it could get very complex quickly. So that would be my only concern, that we not create more problems or any unfairness or feeling of unfairness by staff who do need to work and be here. That would be my concern. But I certainly support all the huge efforts everyone's made, including the council, because it really was a big year. So I think it is a nice thing to do if the logistics could be worked out.
Yeah, and I did talk to Gary Bell, our other attorney, ahead of time, and so this would be outside of the bargaining unit, because it essentially is a thank you from the council to the staff. So it would fall outside of that. And I think that's pretty much what he said, but we'll be bringing that back. Any other, Vice Mayor Knight?
Thank you, Mayor. I support the mayor's suggestion and appreciate the comments by Councilmember Tripp, but I would defer to the town manager and our new administrative services director, King, to work out those details. But thank you. I hope people are able to take some time off, but if not, I'm sure it'll be put in reserve so that they can do it as they wish. So thank you.
But I think if they can't, but I'm really hoping, since we're going to close that, and we might get some more legal opinion later, but we might have to really designate it for these 3 days. So we'll let the staff and our legal group figure that out. Councilmember Reeves.
Yes, I really support this gesture, and I thank you for bringing it up. And I agree with the other council members who are concerned about the people who can't actually take those days off. And so if that can be worked out to everybody's satisfaction, I would appreciate being able to make the gesture.
I'm in agreement, and I'm looking ahead to the holiday adjustments. I don't know if we're there to discuss those, but to say, and I understand that they will be on an as-needed basis, but for scheduling purposes, for those of us that work and need to know things in advance, I hope that we could come to some, January and February pretty soon, and, so we're not waiting more than 30 days out, I guess.
Yeah, I think what I would advise you is, I think you can sort of schedule accordingly, and unless something dramatic comes up, which would be tantamount to a special meeting anyway, then, at that time I can pull all of you, whether the regular date works, or if it doesn't, we can always create a special meeting, but that would be only if needed. And at this point, I'm hoping it isn't. Because those are usually, sort of extraordinary circumstances. But
So when you say schedule accordingly, mean that we'll go ahead and meet on the Tuesday following the holiday, or?
no, that we wouldn't. That we
okay.
wouldn't meet. Yeah.
Wanted to clarify.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
And just on that, I thought, and maybe we change this with our new governance policy, that we always took, the council had a break the 2nd in July and December.
It's August.
August and December.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
in there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that is reflected here.
But the December seems to be missing. Did I not read that correctly?
Well, no, I'm sorry. At the very beginning, under the recommendation, we are suggesting that we forego December 19th, 2023. So I think that's up there under the recommendation.
But isn't that normally scheduled as a non-meeting, the 2nd?
Yes.
Okay.
Your policy talks about
August.
second meeting in August, second meeting in December, and then this year we added first meeting in September because it fell after Labor Day.
Right, okay.
And so we're kind of proposing that be your legislative recess, and that these other meetings would be foregone unless there was extraordinary circumstances.
Okay, so now that we've kind of dealt with the Christmas break in 2023, so you also have 2024. So you would like to hear our just general thoughts, that we just kind of give a general approval or not for, and we'll work out. I think we'll have another discussion probably in 2024.
In terms of the gift or the thank you.
Or some other creative thing.
Let's make sure it works.
We'll kind of see, because we do need to let, town people know that we will be closed, even though there might be some skeleton crew that's Sam's already got stuff planned, or that atmospheric river that might pop up. So,
I think we can say now that the offices will be closed. The question is, can we extend the gesture, the offer, the thank you that you've suggested? And I've got to think there's a way, but I do think you've kind of pointed out the issue, which is there are some people that have to work, and those people have to be treated equitably or fairly. So that'll be the one issue that we'll have to work through, and I'm hopeful that we can. And then it sounds as though I'm not looking. I mean, if Celia was not in December 5th, we can bring something back. So if
She's
we do need
nodding
to get a
yes.
formal approval, then we will. I feel her nodding in my. So yeah, we can move quickly to do that. I just think we have to address that one issue that you pointed out. So
Okay.
okay.
So did we give you the direction you needed?
Yes, I think we'll come back December 5th with this, and then we'll just plan accordingly in terms of the schedule. Unless there's.
Do we require a motion for this, Mayor, or no?
It's always
because
useful to-
We'll do that motion on December 5th. If there's,
Okay, we
Oh,
can
in
we
terms
can
of
bring it
just the
back.
general schedule is just informational, then I
Right.
guess. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
yeah. And so I don't know if it's a resolution or a minute order, but I'll let the legal team kind of decide there. All right. So with that,
I was just going to add
Oh,
that
Councilmember McKee
in the
Camp just buzzed
scheduling
in.
that you put together shortly after joining the team, I think with probably Assistant Town Clerk Hillary's help, that was really helpful, that we knew when events were, which ones, the council was encouraged in going to. So if we can look at any of those annual events and start piecing that together, I'd appreciate it.
so thank you, staff from all the council. So with that, any item 12, staff presentation, informational reports. Any additional?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to report is that last week I received a resignation letter from Eddie Gomez, our town clerk. He will be, he's taken another job, so we are happy for him, and I think he's, just with young kids, managing his work-life balance, and that was really the purpose. So obviously, we have our deputy clerk and our management fellow who are covering this afternoon. We will be working on a succession plan. I do believe Eddie will be with us for our last meeting of the year on December 5th. I think his last day is December 8th. So I just wanted to announce that publicly. And as the plan develops, I'll make sure I share it with you in the community.
I look,
Thank you.
Mayor, I just look forward to us being able to, hopefully he can be here on the 5th so we can thank him. So, but,
That is the plan. So
all right, thank you.
you're welcome.
So with that, last item, council external meeting reports. I know Eric and I, Councilmember McKee Kent and I attended NVTA briefly there. Still lots of discussion at those meetings about their ballot measure, which is extending the Measure T out for 10 more years. No, actually, it's 20 years, I believe. So there's still a lot of surveys kind of going around in the public, and we're working on some of that ballot measure and quite a big, campaign, education campaign, which can't come from their staff. So we're doing it in some creative ways. So, we approved the use of some, we're going to be buying some more electric buses, but we're also now buying some CNG, some certified natural gas buses, and we're going to be having a CNG facility and probably a hydrogen facility in the new bus facility that we have being almost completed now, kind of near American Canyon. And
If I can add to that, they bought 6 of the used CNG buses, and they have a life expectancy of 12 years, and these are about 6 years old. They came from LAX Airport, so they haven't been used too hard, but more encircling. So they expect a good 6 to 7 years. Well, they have other of the electric buses on order. So.
because the first electric bus company that we bought all our buses from now is out of business. So luckily, they did not have their own charging stations, and they were more of they were made by another company, and that company is still around. So
Those wraps.
all this stuff is, the whole industry is really, there was a lot of federal money that kind of helped support that. When the federal money went away, they kind of went away too. So anyway, a lot of changes and evolution in this whole business arena of transportation, streets and roads. Any other council reports from meetings? All right, seeing none, I will ask for a motion to adjourn to our next regularly scheduled meeting on December the 5th.
I move we adjourn to the special meeting on December the 5th.
Do we know if we're going to have a special meeting or a regular meeting yet?
Yeah, we intend to have a study session at 1 o'clock. I'm not sure about a closed session, so that would be the 3rd.
Okay, so we're going to make a motion to move to the special meeting. Thank you for catching that.
yeah.
On 1 o'clock on December the 5th.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Thank you, everybody. Good night, TV Land.